Hey everyone, Riggs here. Okay, in this demonstration, what I've done is I've printed the same exact image, one on my Riggs Can Do It quick transfer paper and the other one on just regular printer paper. I'm using two nice, smooth and clean wood pieces here as the substrate, and I'm using Liquitex matted gel medium as the glue. I'm going to use my finger and just smooth this out and try to get the best coverage possible without any dry spots. If you haven't seen the video on missing spots, you'll want to do that to understand why it's important to make sure that you have 100% coverage with a moist glue and that no area is either missing or gone tacky or dry. Okay, now with my glue applied, I'm going to go ahead and put the image face down onto it. And by the way, just as a quick aside, make sure you print mirrored because of the fact that you're going to be turning the image over. You can see that the images are mirrored in this example, even though it wasn't necessary for a demo, but eh, practice makes perfect, I guess. Anyway, make sure that you brayer out any bubbles, wrinkles, any kind of air spots. You want to make sure you have 100% contact, nice and smooth and flat. And now I'm just going to repeat the exact same process here for this other sheet of paper. Okay, now my paper, the quick transfer paper is on the left, the regular printer paper is on the right, and we want this to dry 100%. You want to make sure it is completely dry. So we're just going to go ahead and leave this now and come back to it later. Now this paper should be dry. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull on it here, and I want you to see what happens when you glue paper onto something. If it's completely glued and you pull the paper, it should start to rip. And I'm going to show enough here so you can see that. See how the paper is just going to tear away from the main sheet. This is normal behavior from paper that is glued. Now, the transfer paper should somewhat do the same thing. You can see that the paper is going to separate. So you know that the paper is dry and it is glued. There should be no way that you could pull an image off that board if it's glued. The difference, of course, is going to be evident here as we moisten these sheets of paper. First, we'll do the Riggs Can Do It quick transfer paper, and now we're just doing the regular printer paper. You can see that they're both absorbing the moisture. And now I'm just going to take a clean sheet of paper towel just to take up the excess. You want to do that. It helps prevent the separating of the paper fibers when you're pulling it off. And you can see that that was a nice, clean removal of the quick transfer paper once it's moistened. Remember what was happening before we wet it? It was ripping the paper off. And now we can see we have a nice, clean transfer. Now that's the difference from doing regular paper, because as you're going to see here, it's not going to just peel off like the quick transfer paper. And that's the big difference between the two. Now you certainly can rub that paper off and you'll make a mess and you might even risk rubbing parts of your image off. But you could just keep rubbing and rubbing and rubbing, and eventually you will get it done. But as you can see, that this is a method that we have all been doing for some years now, and it's a drag, and that's why I had created my transfer paper, because, well, seeing is believing. I mean, which one would you rather be doing? Okay, time for another experiment. Here's my quick transfer paper. This is the back of the paper where it says print on the other side. And I've marked this half with an X with a pencil here and leaving the other side alone. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into my garage and I'm going to protect one side and we're going to treat the other side with lacquer spray. Okay, now this is the printed side, or the side we're going to print our image on. Again, this is my quick transfer paper, so that means it's coated on one side. Okay, it has kind of a shine to it in the light if you move it around. The other side is not coated, and I put an X here. And I'm going to protect the half with the X. So in this case, this half here. I'll use this little cardboard piece here to do that. And let's just move this over just a little bit. And I'd say that's probably half right about there. Okay, so we're going to spray this half with this Kmart varnish. You do not want to spray up close because spray is wet and moisture will affect the coating on the paper. So what I'm going to do, after shaking this up of course, is I'm going to mist this very gently at first from a distance so that the mist will just lightly land on the paper. And then after it dries and you do a few more little spritz that doesn't soak the paper, it will be protected. Then I can come a little closer and give it a final spray. So let's go ahead and I'm good 2-3 feet away. You can probably tell by my voice. And I'm just gonna kind of do this little spritzing above it, like so. And because I'm doing it from a distance, by the time it lands on here, it dries relatively quick. But I want to make sure that I give it good protection before I get any closer with this spray. And I'm just letting the spray gently fall down on the paper. And you do it from a distance so that you could avoid big water spots like I did that right there. Well, it's not water, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Okay, so there we go. So now we have a nice light lacquer coating on here. You don't want to go too heavy, and just enough to give it kind of a little bit of a protection. We're going to actually print on top of this sheet here, and I want you to see if there's much of a difference between the two. And then we're going to come back and we're going to spray this half to protect the image itself. And let me just give it one final spray like this. That should be good. And now we'll move into the office where the printer is located at and give this a print. And let's see, for example here, just to make sure if you can see that in the camera as I move into the light, you can see the demarcation right there. See that? You can see the light glaring off of it at times as I move this. And the other half has nothing. That's the side with the X on the back. Okay, we want to keep that part blank so we can see the difference. Okay, so I'm using my Affinity Designer application, and I got an image here. I sized it 8.5 by 11 because I'm going to print the whole sheet. And I thought I'd find something colorful, so a bunch of colorful butterflies. By the way, I highly recommend this software. It's so inexpensive. It's like 50 bucks. I bought all three of their Illustrator, Designer, and their photo apps. They're just fantastic. Affinity, I'm not sponsored by them. I just absolutely think they're great pieces of software. Anyway, so let's go over to the printer and print this out. Okay, now once you know for sure your paper is dry, you know, from that lacquer I spray on there. Let's see if we can see the
glare on there. We can see one side is shinier than the other. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to feed it. And this is my right here, Color LaserJet Pro M254GW. That's the one that I'm using. I really like this printer. It's never let me down. HP laser printers have never let me down. Alright, so I'm going to feed that there. And come over here and print. Let's see. We're going to print. I got to pick the laser printer. Alright, and I think that's good to go. And here we go. Alright, now take a look at that printout, and you should not be able to tell that there is a difference between those two halves. Alright, so you should have no problem printing on this paper with or without the lacquer. As you can see, it's really nice. Okay, and you can see this is the same paper. There's that X, meaning that this is the side I did not spray. This is the side I sprayed. Alright, now we're going to spray on top of it, so now it'll be sprayed under and above. We'll go back into my garage to take care of that. Now there's the side with the X. That's the side I need to protect, and that's the side that was sprayed before. So I'm going to lay this down now. And I'm going to try to find the middle here again. And that would be about right there, the halfway point. So we'll just cover it like this. And we're now going to spray again, this time on top. We're going to protect it with this Kmart varnish. I'm just going to go lightly, like so. Now you notice at this point, I'm not just doing little spurts or little mists from 3 feet away, but I'm just carefully spraying it, you know, like, well, you can see what I'm doing. And the reason why I don't have to be as careful is because we've already printed on here, and that printing, that laser toner is covering the paper already. And anywhere there's no toner, like wherever you see white, I don't think there's any white in this. There might be a little bit of white, but wherever there's white, there's no toner, because you don't usually have white toner in most color printers, laser printers. It's already protected with the other spray that I did earlier, so we're not even going to be touching the coating that's makes this paper unique for transfers. So I'm going to just give this a nice protection like so. Okay, that looks pretty good. It's all nice and shiny and everything. And the whole purpose of doing it on top of the image now is to protect the image from smearing with whatever glue we're going to use. And I have noticed that if the paper's exposed, just like it is on this half, which I will demonstrate in the art room, and we put the glue on there, that it's possible to smear the toner. I'm gonna make sure I got good coverage over there too on the edge. Didn't look like I caught that. All right, so there we go. And I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little bit of a dry here, and then we're gonna bring it in and do our experiment where I will demonstrate the advantages of spraying. It's not required, but if you want to help prevent any kind of smearing when you're doing your transfers, especially if you're going to do a large transfer like this, the chances of smearing or missing spots when you're transferring and things like that increases, because now you have more surface area that you have to make sure you cover with your glue, whether it's gel medium or whatever you choose to use. And it's easy to miss spots. And so if you do small image transfers, then there's less chance of missing spots. But anyway, let's go ahead and move into the art studio.
Okay, let me zoom in here so you can see this a little bit closer. All right.
Now, here I have the printout, the image, where half of it has been protected with the Kmart lacquer and the other half is just the laser printing directly on the quick transfer paper. Okay, so this side right here is the protected side, and the unprotected side, it was protected from the spray, but it does not have the lacquer coating, and perhaps you can see the shininess on half the image compared to the other half. All right, so this side here, and I'll put this line in the middle here, this side here, it was not sprayed, so this is the regular, not sprayed side, okay, and this is the sprayed side. All right, now what I want to show you here is what could happen when we are adding, let's say, gel medium, for example, or Mod Podge or something else. Okay, here's the gel medium, which is my favorite to use for most transfers. Now, if I was just to put the gel medium on the surface of, let's say this piece of wood here, and then carefully flip this over and pressed it down and pressed it, when it dries, I'll be able to moisten and peel it and have a nice transfer, especially of this size. But if I put too much gel medium down, or if I put it right directly on the image, I could risk actually smearing the image. Now, I'm going to zoom in to the corner here, right here. Okay. And I want you to watch what could happen. So you put your gel medium on there, and now you can already see that I'm losing focus here, but you can see color coming off onto my Q-tip. And I am actually able to wipe off part of the image. All right, and let me get paper towel here to wipe off this excess so that you can see the damage has been done. All right, there you go. Okay, and that's because it's not protected. Of course, there's nothing there to prevent the moisture of the gel from causing smearing. So if you do a transfer and then you find out, let me see if I can find something that may have suffered from that. I usually have examples of just about every disaster possible. Well, no, these are all good. So anyway, you might find sometimes, well, here, let's try this one here. Okay. All right, so let's just use this as an example. So suppose you have a situation like this right here, but you look on the paper itself, and let me zoom back out again. You look on the paper itself when you had peeled it off, and you do not see evidence of the image actually being pulled off onto the paper, as I demonstrated earlier in this video, due to not being properly glued down. But yet you still see exposure to, let's say, the white background. You know, you have a painted board that's white, and you can see white, and yet you don't see the evidence of the actual image pulled off with the paper itself. This is often due to moving the toner around as you are flattening it with the brayer, and you have all that gel medium or that Mod Podge, and you're actually sloshing it around and sliding that goo, that glue, everywhere. Then what happens, of course, is you can end up with these white spots or just plain missing images, and you're like, well, where did it go? Where did it go? Well, it went right off with the gel medium or the glue or whatever you used. Now, here, this corner here, we're going to use the gel medium again, but this time this has got the Kmar lacquer. So let's see how well it fares under the barrage of the gel medium. Okay, now I did the same thing as I did over here, but look at the difference. I have less damage, or perhaps none at all. Now I can eventually work my way through even the lacquer. If I try really hard and I take a long time to do this, I will eventually get through this, I believe. But it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of time, and quite frankly, this is not going to be something you're going to actually be doing on purpose, and it will allow you to survive the pressing with the brayer or anything else, regardless of how much of this gel you end up using. All right, so you can see on the Q-tip, I don't have any coloration happening here, and the image is protected. Okay, so the question then is, well, now that we've coated it with this lacquer, are we going to be able to transfer it? Well, we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate that by taking this half right here. In other words, I'm going to transfer onto here, straight down the middle. Okay, so half of this will be without the protection and half will be with it, and this is simply to demonstrate that you'll be able to transfer from either side. So I'm going to take a sponge brush here. I'm going to dip it into the gel medium again. I want to get enough to get full coverage here, because anywhere that you do not have coverage, you will not have a transfer, and then that would just really mess up our little test, okay? So, but I'm going to put a lot on here because I want to demonstrate having a lot of gel medium and how it really won't make a difference to the protected side. It could make a difference to the unprotected side. Okay, now I'm going to just tap this on here, and I'll use my finger in a second. I just want to make sure I have enough to smear around. And we're going to have plenty to smear around here, so you can see. All right, there we go. Now, let me just take my finger here and make sure that I have no missing spots, especially on the edges. Okay, I'm just carefully gliding. I'm not wiping it off. All right, I'm just gliding my finger over, feeling for any hard spots. And then the edges, I'm always neglecting that, so I got to make sure I get around the edges. Okay, but you want to make sure that you have nice, moist glue or gel medium, whatever you're using, Mod Podge, same difference. All right, I hope I have enough over here. Can't see it too well from where I'm at, but we have enough. And now I'm going to put this right down the middle of the sheet here. Let's see, right down the middle. All right. And we need to start oozing it out because we got a lot, right? So we're going to push it all out. It's getting all over my craft paper, regretfully. Make sure you have good contact, all right? Okay, I think that will do it. All right, now I want to get this pulled up so it doesn't get glued to the table here. Got to carefully get this up without lifting the paper off the wood. I'm going to press it again here in a second, but first let me do some cleanup. And you can see on this side we've already made a transfer. You see how some of the image has already come off on the paper. See that? Because the gel medium is pre-activating because there's so much of it. The moisture is incredible. All right, if I used just a little bit, I wouldn't have this problem. But when people are trying to do large images, they have to use more gel. And by adding more gel, they of course cause a lot of ooze out, like you see right here. All right, and this is what I'm trying to get everyone to understand, is that the glue is moisture. It has moisture in it, and it will activate the coating of the transfer paper to release the image. Notice on this side, we have part of the image is gone now. It just got lifted right off. And you can see this is the side that wore off when I demonstrated. But notice nothing came off over here. All right. Let me go and get a piece of plastic here to protect this, so I'll be able to peel it off. And let me just go one more time, making sure I didn't lift this off. All right. And we want this to dry completely, 100% completely. Now, if I started to peel this paper up, the side that is unprotected may have already transferred the image. Okay, which would be, let's see, what side is that would be this side right here with the X. If I was to start peeling this right now, you may already see that the image has transferred. And this is part of what I originally demonstrated as the 45-second transfer. You may want to watch that video if you haven't seen it. It's one of my early ones. Let me just pull this back and we should see one half of this may have already transferred. May. I don't know if I had it on here long enough, but let's see what happens. Okay, there you go. Take a look at that. All right. We already have transfer on one half. So that's the advantage of not protecting. However, let me just re-glue this side here. And put some on here too. So make sure we get a full transfer. All right, so I'm going to do this again here. But I hope that you found that quite enlightening. Now, once this dries 100%, what we're hoping for is that the side that was protected will be able to transfer, because the image will be glued down and it will be dry, and there's no way that we can pull that image off the wood. But to release the paper, then we will put moisture on it and be able to peel this off, and you should be able to see the image on both sides. But right now you can see what happens just with the gel medium or Mod Podge or whatever, that it activates the paper without even putting moisture on it, and you already can get a transfer in less than a minute. So the thing to learn there is if you're just doing a small transfer, like something this big, or on a canvas or whatever, just this big, and you want to do it in a minute or less, 45 seconds to a minute, and you know how not to add too much gel to smear it, you can literally do a transfer without letting it dry completely. As you saw, it was not dry, that's why I was able to peel the paper off, but yet it left the image down. And that's a pretty neat little trick that you can do with this paper, but you may have to get a little bit of practice to know, how long to keep the paper on before you peel, and make sure that you don't leave it on too long, otherwise you will need water to release it. But that's desirable, of course. For regular transfers, is we want 100% dry, we want it 100% glued, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to release the paper and get the transfer we want. So anyway, I will be back when this thing is 100% dry in a couple hours or so, and we will go ahead and release this. Well, I'm back. It's really late here in transfer land, but I wanted to do the reveal before I went to bed tonight. Got to get up fresh tomorrow morning for another day of stock market trading. Anyway, so as you can see, everything's all nice and dry. Now, if you remember, I already started peeling this part up right here, and it might still come up. I don't know. Let's see if it... Nope, it's going to hold. Look at that. All right, so when you know it's properly glued, you should not be able to pull the paper off. It's glued. Okay? That's normal. That's wet. Wow. Okay, that's wet, but the rest of it is glued. I hadn't wiped that up. How unfortunate. Okay. Anyway, but the paper should be glued on just like any other paper. Okay, the transfer paper is just like any other printer paper. If you glue it, it should not pull off once it's dried. When it's wet, of course, it can still come off like I demonstrated. All right, so once you know that that's on there, now we're going to release this paper with some water. And that's what makes this paper different, is that you can release it by just wetting the back, then taking up the excess, and then peel. And let's see how this works out. Here is the protected side, and here is the unprotected side. We already know it looks good over here. Let's see what happens with the Kmart lacquer side as well. So, get some clean, dry, no, nasty. We'll get rid of that. All right, there we go. Clean paper towel, get that ready. Some water on a sponge. And let's moisten that paper, all right? So we can release it. We want to get it soaking in there. We'll do it around the edges too, just in case it starts to stick. But we want to moisten that. Okay, in about 30 seconds of soaking it, that probably should do the trick. And then I want to take up the excess, otherwise it's so easy for the fibers of the paper to tear it apart, and you might end up just leaving paper on there that you'll have to kind of slightly rub off. So we'll just do this. Just take up the excess once we've moistened it. Now we should be able to peel both sides up, and you should see a transfer happening right before your eyes. Let me zoom in here, All right, and here we go. Now see that right there is what I'm talking about when the paper itself, you see the paper itself is just separating, but that's not a big deal because all you have to do is just get the edge started. Let me get it wet. Just soak it wet there. And it just comes right off, see? But now I want to make sure we can get the edge there so that it doesn't keep tearing as it runs. There we go. See that? Look how nice that's working out. Okay, look at that. Now, I want you to see this sheet of paper here. All right? Notice that everything came off. Everything. Right? And that little piece of paper that was on here is just the paper coming out of the, you know, it's just part of the paper, you know. I don't know how to explain it, but paper, it's fibers, you know. Paper's made of compressed pulp. And sometimes if you get it too wet and you don't take it up enough, it might tear a little surface part off. But you just take it off. That's real simple. But this is how you know you have a complete transfer. All right, so if you have any areas in here where you're missing the transfer, the image, then it was smeared and it moved. Now because this is a small transfer, it didn't cause any kind of a smearing or anything at all. This is 100% perfect. I'm just going to kind of clean it up with this X-Acto blade here. Just a little bit of housekeeping for the glue that kind of oozed out on the side there. Okay. I'm kind of funny that way. I always like to clean my transfers. All right. There we go. That's perfect right there. And now that I've been fussing with it, I can't tell which side is the lacquered side and which side is not. Can you tell? I can't tell. But if I look carefully, yes, I see a line coming right down in here. And the question is, which is which? Well, I'm going to have to consult this paper here, and we know, all right, that this side here, that with the X, is the unprotected side. All right, and if that's the unprotected side, then that means that's the unprotected side because that's part of the wing of this. So, on your left, here is the side that did not get the lacquer, and this side got the lacquer. And looking at this, and if you could see this in the light, I don't know if it's showing, but the part that had the lacquer on it has a nice, like it came off of a print. It's just nice and uniform. It's almost like it's embedded in the wood kind of thing, as opposed to the untreated side is a little more, it's a little more saturated, darker. It's darker, but it's more of a surface look, and it has a slightly more, I wish you could see this in the light to see what I'm talking about there. I can't tell looking on the little screen on the camera. However, maybe when you see this after video editing, you might be able to see the difference. I really do like the treated side better, and it was 100% perfection. Both sides actually came out 100%. But I do like this side better, but you know what? I leave that up to you, your choice, but look at that. Isn't that beautiful? All right? That was a perfect transfer, and you can see it all came off here. But anyway, the whole point of this little exercise was to point out the difference between where you can literally rub off the image with your gel medium or whatever glue you're using if you don't do anything at all to it. So you have to be really careful. We did a small image, so that didn't cause much of a problem. But notice that excess glue came off and it smeared all this right here. And so if you recall that, keep that in mind. Notice that this side right here, okay, if you look real close, you can see just real clean, just a 100% clean release. And you know, there's something right, oh, that's just garbage. Okay, so we got nothing, everything came off. Then you can see here, nothing smeared at all because it was all protected. Anyway, I'm sure I got my point across there. So now we're just gonna move on.